Hey guys, I'm back with a video on the Great Depression and the New Deal. Yeah, I didn't record a video for the 1920s because we watched Our Century America's Time, and I think that one did a pretty good job on the 20s. I may come back and do like a smaller video on the stuff that one missed, but that one will probably show up this weekend, so yeah, I'll have to get back at you guys with that. Don't worry, though, because I'll probably have something up before you guys take your test on the 1920s, the Great Depression, and World War II. So, we are still in time period 7 for APUSH history, and this topic right here is a freaking beast, man. Great Depression and the New Deal has a lot going on. So bear with me because, yeah, it's going to be a wild ride. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get down to this. I will be referring to the 20s a lot in this first video. This time period, the Great Depression and the New Deal, will probably have several videos attached to it, kind of like how the Gilded Age did. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Now, let's go ahead and discuss the underlying causes of the Great Depression because there's like quite a few. So I'm going to try to break this down one by one with you guys today, and we'll go from there. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about financial panics that we've had in history before. So financial panics, that was a term for like depression, back in the 1800s. So we're talking like Panic of 1819, 1837, 1857, 1873, and 1893. So only two of these were like super bad. I want to say it was the 1893 and 1873. Like those were like freaking terrible. But anyways, somebody leave it in the comments. I forget which two exactly were like the super bad ones. I want to say it's the ones that we had during the Gilded Age. So, and usually like people thought they were part of the business cycle. It's like, oh, we're going through a bad period. All right, we're going to come back around and like, take care of this. Yeah, it kind of happened because, I mean, a lot of them didn't extend longer than a year. So, yeah, people in the 1800s really did think that. So that's why we have like more of a laissez-faire approach to like financial panics. But this one that we have that's known as the Great Depression lasted for a way longer time. And again, we kind of took the laissez-faire approach at first. We're like, yeah, it's a business cycle. We'll bounce back. No, dude. Nah. This one starts in 1929, and we don't officially bounce back until 1941, World War II. So, yeah, this one is not your typical financial panic. This is truly a Great Depression. So, as we go ahead and cover the rest of this time period, I will make comparisons to the Great Recession in 2008. There are a lot of similarities, and actually with a lot of these financial panics, there's a lot of similarities in what happens. Banks usually close. Stock prices fall. People lose their jobs, which causes other people to lose their jobs because nobody's paying their bills. And it's a vicious cycle that happens. So, like I said, today you guys are going to get a good glimpse at the causes of the Great Depression, which, here we go. The Great Depression was caused by all of the following. So, what we kind of see is like the immediate cause is like the stock market crash, right? Financial panic ensues. So, that would be kind of like how we were talking about with World War I, the initial spark, like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, that caused World War I. This would be our spark, the stock market crash. That is our immediate cause. Everything before that, though, is a long-term cause, like the high tariffs and war debts from World War I. The unequal distribution of wealth. Yeah, come on, we should have learned from the Gilded Age. That was not a good idea. overproduction in both agriculture and industry. Also, the excessive use of credit. Now, that's a brand new thing, and I think that's one thing that actually set apart the Great Depression from like other financial panics. We didn't exactly extend credit to consumers when it came to like buying like consumer goods and stuff. So yeah, people are gonna go freaking crazy, like charging it up, man. Not a good idea. And then of course, like stock market speculation. People were doing dumb crap like buying stocks on margin, which we'll discuss in a bit because it's illegal for a reason now. And we also have governmental policies like, well, laissez-faire, high tariffs, dumb crap. So I'll tell you guys, like, the stuff that caused the Great Depression, we should have seen it coming. We should have seen it coming. So seriously, during every financial crisis, people are like, especially historians, are just like, oh my God, dude, we saw this coming. Because we study history. We see the patterns and the trends, and we're like, yeah, bro, called it. I remember talking to my class like back in 2007 when all of this stuff was going down with like the housing crisis, you know, all this stuff. And I remember telling them, guys, just watch, man. There's going to be a financial downturn, you know, in the coming months, and it's going to be pretty wicked, like bad. Sure enough, great freaking recession. So, and then my students came back at me like the following year. They're like, ma'am, you're right. I'm like, yeah, I study history. So, yeah, historians. We got the unfortunate job of like knowing when bad stuff's going to happen because we see the signs. So, let's go ahead and check out the bad stuff. Yeah, because certainly in the 20s, we're partying it up. We're dancing the Charleston like we see here on the cover of Life magazine. And we were like, yeah, prosperity. Everybody's having a good time. No, everybody's not having a good time. People got rich off of stock market speculation. And there was a big gap between rich and poor. Whenever you have that, a big gap between rich and poor, you are not doing well financially as a country. No freaking chance. Because the people who spend the money are your middle classes and your working classes. The rich? Not really. Unless they're reinvesting in whatever business they have, they're usually just kind of saving it or buying stuff that really doesn't drive the economy, like yachts and like other expensive crap. So that's why this is a really bad thing. Wages rose relatively little compared to the large increases in productivity that we saw with industry and with corporate profits. So to give you guys some statistics, the top 5% of the richest Americans receive over 33% of all of the income. So do you guys know how bad that is? All right. Okay, let's say out of 100 people, 5 of them are going to have as much money, well, rather more money than 33 of them. Yeah, something's wrong with that. So here's some more statistics for you guys. Although the nation's total realized income rose from $74.3 billion in 1929 to $89 billion in, $74.3 billion in 1923 to $89 billion in 1929. The income was not evenly distributed. Here's the statistic that really gets me. The top 0.1%, not even 1%, the top 0.1% of Americans had the combined income equal to the bottom 42%. Bro, that is like ultra rich. Like we're talking back to like almost Gilded Age levels of unequal distribution of income. That is insane to have and still have a healthy economy. It does not work. And that same top 0.1% controlled 34% of all the savings in the country. And what that tells us is that people are living paycheck to paycheck. And that is never a good thing for a sound economy. Because, I mean, when you have 80% of Americans with no savings at all, that means they have nothing to fall back on. If they lose their job or if they owe like an incredible amount of money or anything, like that's it. No safety net, and no safety net for the vast majority of Americans is never a good sign for the economy. That's why like economists like look at stuff like this. They're like, oh crap, things are not going to end up well. And usually they don't when you have statistics like this. Also, the top 1% receive 75% increase in their disposable income, while the other 99 saw a 9% increase. Again, that huge gap between rich and poor. So if you need to see this graphically, here you go. This is what we just talked about. And that should never freaking be the case. I'm telling you, whenever you see statistics like this, financial crisis is a coming. Like, it's not good. Another thing that's not good during the Great Depression is the excessive use of credit. Yeah, I know, I'm using that picture again. But, so, here's what goes on. Now, industry is producing stuff like crazy. I mean, we're pumping out like cars, Ford with the Model T. I mean, we're doing like all of this stuff. So pretty much people are wanting these consumer goods, and we are wanting these radios and, washing machines and vacuums and like all of these cool consumer products that were coming out in the 20s. And, of course we don't have like the straight up cash to go ahead and buy that stuff now. So businesses are going to extend credit out to their customers to where you buy now and pay later. It's installment plans that you see, which is just another word for credit, guys. So these low interest rates that are offered to the customers, people are thinking, wow, businesses are doing freaking great. They're selling a lot of products and stuff. Not really. Buying stuff on credit, and this being a brand new concept for everybody, is going to come back to bite us in the butt. Like, really, it is. Because a lot of people just put stuff on credit. And then when it comes time to paying the bills, dude, they don't have the money. So, it's going to create this false sense of prosperity for the country. Because really, buying stuff on credit, businesses do great with it only when the customer pays everything. So, credit, bad idea in the 20s. People just don't know how to deal yet. So, another thing. We're going to have global economic problems dealing with World War I. So you guys remember World War I, we had the Treaty of Versailles. And the Treaty of Versailles had the war guilt clause in it, which made Germany pay for like freaking everything, right? European nations themselves also had a massive amount of debt to us here in the United States because we were supplying the Allies with food, with clothing, with supplies, with, weapons and such, and everything they needed for the war. So there's also a sense of globalization happening, international banking, manufacturing, and trade. Countries are very interdependent on one another now, post-Gilded Age and into like World War I and such. So Europe is still reeling from World War I. They're still trying to rebuild. They're still like trying to do everything, and they're pressing countries like Germany to go ahead and pay the war guilt, the reparations, pretty much. So we were also insisting that Europe pay back its loans in full. So it was like we were adding pressure on European countries, which were adding pressure on Germany. So Germany is going through some terrible financial times during the 20s. And, rise of Hitler, because of his bad financial times. But we just kind of don't give a crap because we want our money and we want our money now. And we're also doing the dumb thing of, like, raising tariffs. imports are a big way, well, exports actually are a big way that countries gain money. I mean, selling their goods abroad. So if we're taxing the hell out of those goods with tariffs, yeah, the other countries are not benefiting whatsoever. So we're expecting these countries to pay us back, but yet we're taxing the hell out of their exports, so they really can't pay us back. The Hawley-Smoot Tariff kind of like ruins things with that. We'll get into the Hawley-Smoot Tariff in a little bit. But, so we're going to try to like give Europe some relief with the Dawes Plan later under Hoover. But, yeah, stock market crash in 29. We kind of suspended the relief loans that were offered during the Dawes Plan. So, God, that's another dumb thing. It's like, hey, Europe, how about we give you some loans so you can pay us back with that money we just loaned you? Yeah, we actually did that with the Dawes Plan. Like I said, guys, historians, we look at this stuff, we're like, oh my God, how did we think this was going to work? Anyways, because Europe is having financial difficulties post-World War I, the rest of the world will slowly start to have financial difficulties during World War I. And, of course, our dumb crap we're doing here at home is going to help to, lead the charge with the Great Depression. And further just bad stuff. So here's another cause of the Great Depression. We kind of went into it right now. High tariffs and war debt. So here's how much the European nations actually owe. Over $10 billion back then. So if we're looking at 2002 money, it's like 115 billion. I'm sure it's like way more now because of inflation. So, yeah, their economies are just wrecked because of the war. They've got no way of paying back the money and still putting pressure on Germany, right? So, but we're like, hey, give us our money. And so Germany gets pressured and they go through like a horrible financial time of hyperinflation. So it's bad times all around in Europe, especially in Germany. So, I mean, all of this is going to like just contribute to just the bad economic times. And then when we pass the Fordney-McCumber tariff, Lord, we just like put the pressure on them. Other nations are going to be like, what the hell? And they retaliate by putting tariffs on our goods as well. So that really hurts us because with this next cause of the Great Depression, overproduction in industry, with high tariffs, we can't get rid of these excess goods that we're producing because nobody's willing to freaking buy it overseas. I mean, it's common sense. So the last thing that businesses want is to have goods sit on their shelves. They don't want that. Plus, workers aren't really earning a lot of money to buy these products, with the exception of Ford. I mean, Ford actually paid their workers pretty well enough to purchase Model Ts and stuff from the Ford. But production is rising so fast, it's outpacing wages. So really, workers in general can't afford to buy the factory goods that they're putting out. So all of these surplus goods can't be sold overseas because of those tariffs we just talked about, and because Europeans in general just don't have money at this time. I mean, their economies are shot. So business growth, I mean, the way they're making money is through the whole buying on buying with installment plans with credit, and people aren't paying that. So really, it looks good on the books that they're moving like a lot of goods off their shelves, but in reality, it's kind of like a false sense of security for them. And everything is going to come crashing down when the stock market collapses on October 29th, 1929, Black Tuesday. So, All right, industry is not the only one having a problem with exports. It's also going to be farm production. Because, okay, during World War I, we were telling farmers, hey, farm, produce everything. So, of course, they were buying new equipment to keep up with the demands of World War I and new land and such. So, they were getting into massive, like, debt again to, like, keep up with this high demand. So all of the prosperity of the 20s never quite trickled down to the farmers. I mean, they suffered from overproduction, and when you overproduce farm products, they have like a limited shelf life. Plus, if you oversaturate the market, you're not going to like earn enough money to like pay your stuff, to pay that mortgage, to pay off the loans for the equipment and the land you bought to keep up with production in World War I. So, yeah, crop prices fall. I mean, they're going through a bad time, just like they did like during the Gilded Age. Bad time. This is probably a worse time. So, plus they have severe weather, droughts, and we'll talk about the Dust Bowl a little later on, where they can't really grow stuff if you're in that area. So, farm income is going to drop significantly in the 20s because of the surplus and the overproduction. Farm land prices are going to fall as well. So even if they tried to sell the land, they're not going to get back nearly enough to pay off their initial loans. For agriculture, the Great Depression actually began in the 20s. So these guys went through double the depression. Yeah, farmers getting screwed. So in 1929, the average annual income for American family is $750, but for farmers, $273. So yeah, these guys are suffering during the 20s and into the Great Depression. So 30% of Americans at this time lived on farms. So, I mean, you got a third of the population suffering during the 20s. All right, another dumb thing that we do. Stock market speculation. Okay, this is when your average Joe started playing into the stock market. So, and of course, you play into the stock market on the hopes of striking it rich. Now, what people were doing was speculating that the price of the stock would go up and they could sell it for a quick profit. So in order to do this quick kind of turnaround, what they're going to do is this dumb crap called buying on margin. Buying on margin is basically allowing your average Joe or whoever to borrow money to purchase stock. So really, they're purchasing stocks from the stock market for about 10% of the cost of the stock. So let's say the stock costs $100. They're only paying $10 to own that stock. Now, here's the thing with the stock market, guys. If you lose money on the stock market, you got to pay back that money. So if these people are only paying $10 for a $100 stock, are they going to have the money to like pay back their losses? Hell freaking no. So this is such a risky investment. And so many people are doing that with the stock market. So it's kind of like the stock market's trading on like borrowed money in a way. So when the stock prices drop, the market is essentially going to collapse. And you're going to lose everything that you borrowed and invested. So remember how you guys were asking about, oh, hey, are the Rockefellers still rich, the Carnegies and like all that, and Vanderbilts and whatnot? This is where they lose a lot of their money. It's because of stock market speculation. And that stock market collapsed in 29. So that's why the Vanderbilts don't own those fancy ass homes anymore, with the exception of Biltmore. So, yeah, let's talk more about government policies, because really the government is not helping at this time at all. Besides those tariffs that we just talked about, like the Hawley-Smoot Tariff. We talked about the Ford Nate McCumber one. Here's the Hawley-Smoot. All right. The Hawley-Smoot Tariff is going to hurt industry and farmers, because Congress wants to protect American industry and get Americans to buy more American goods. So what we do, we have a high tariff to pay. You don't do a protective tariff when you got products sitting on your shelves because the other countries will retaliate and not buy your stuff anyways. I swear, guys, the life of a historian. We always look at the stuff. We're like, what? Like, how do you think this is a good idea? So, yeah, as usual, countries are going to retaliate over this high tariff. They're going to place high tariffs of their own on our goods that we export to them. So in the end, nobody wins because of these high tariffs. We're all just hurting ourselves. So, and with the European economy already just tanking at this time, they don't have money to spend money on our stuff, and American industry suffers as a result. Plus, I mean, the government policies at this time were like, yeah, laissez-faire. Let's let business do whatever the hell it wants. Did we not learn what happens when we let business do whatever it wants? It's like we forgot the Gilded Age existed. Jeez, this is only a generation removed from like the progressive era. Come on now. These people forgot how bad business was. Like, as far as like managing itself. Oh, Lord. All right. And here's another thing. The Federal Reserve tightened money policies when banks are failing. Instead of like loosening money policies up and like, hey, banks, let's hook you up with some money. They're like, nah, you fail. Just because we want to preserve the gold standard. This is like I swear. It's like these people don't know how to deal with a bad economy. But anyways. So, all right. The guy I feel sorry for, though, is Herbert Hoover. This guy is, all about like, yeah, everybody's got a chicken in every pot. He's talking about prosperity and promising that people are going to live well during his presidency. So the election is in 1928, and the dude comes into office 1929. He's only in for a few months, and then boom, crash in October. And everybody blames Hoover because, well, he's the president during the stock market crash. But really, it was the two guys before him. It was Harding and Coolidge who had the bad policies. So Hoover kind of like takes the blame for them. But Hoover really doesn't do much to like combat the Depression either, which we will see right now when we cover his presidency. But all right, let's break it down. The immediate cause of the Great Depression is the stock market crash. So stock prices have been rising, and we're like, yeah, we're wealthy, we're prosperous. No, you're not. They keep going up and up and up for 18 months between March 1928 to September 1929. And of course, people were thinking, yeah, we're doing great. We're doing fantastic. We're going to invest in the stock market by buying on margin. So when the crash finally hits in October 1929, millions of money is going to be lost and the collapse happens. So you've got people who are like millionaires go to like flat broke overnight. So, the true panic actually hits Black Thursday. So that's October 24th, 1929. You have a lot of selling of stocks at that time. Stock prices are plunging, but the big crash happens on Black Tuesday, which is October 29th, 1929. That's the date you need to remember, Black Tuesday. So, yeah, we tried to fix things between Black Thursday and Black Tuesday with bankers trying to like stabilize the stocks and whatnot, but it did not work. So you've got panic in the streets. People were like rushing Wall Street, trying to rush into the banks before they closed on them, because at this point in time, guys, when a bank closes on you, you lose everything. So if you didn't make it into those doors before they closed, you lost everything. Even if you did the right thing and saved your money and didn't do this dumb crap about stock market speculation and whatnot. When the bank runs out of money, it runs out of money during this time period. Now, because of the Great Depression, we have safeguards against that. But, yeah, Great Depression, we did not have the safeguards put in place yet when the stock market crashed. So, overall, here are the reasons why the stock market crashes. Buy on margin, the Federal Reserve policies, global economic problems, the weak farm economy, overproduction of consumer goods, excessive use of credit, and uneven distribution of income. Plus, the stock market speculation and stocks were overpriced. So all of these things combined get our economy crashing. And that's why the Great Depression begins. Yeah, I know, this is like the happiest font for the Great Depression beginning. But no, it's actually a bad time. bad time in history. So, here's what we're talking about, though. Look at this. This is the effects of the Depression on consumer spending from 1929 to 1933. So, of course, okay, this is common sense, guys. The first thing you're going to spend your money on is food, right? Because you need to eat to live. So, look at the decreased spending right there. And then the second thing you're going to spend most of your money on is housing because you need a place to live. And then you go clothing because you need clothes to wear, obviously, especially in the winter and such. And then you go medical because, you want to try to take care of your health, and then your car is next. So, this is like basically the hierarchy of things you need, right? And it makes sense, but you could see how little people are actually spending on all of these things that we absolutely need during the Great Depression. So, really, it's terrible. It's terrible what's going on in the country. Because, look at this as well. You could see the savings, the income and savings here from 1929 to 1933. They have plummeted, right? People are not saving money. People are not earning money either during this time. So, like I was saying, though, Hoover kind of does little to combat the Great Depression at first. Because, before this, we always thought that financial panics worked themselves out, and they usually did. But we don't quite understand why this one is so different yet. So Hoover's going to keep the same policies that the Republicans had been pushing, all throughout the Gilded Age and into this era as well, which is a laissez-faire approach to business. Just leave it alone. It's going to fix itself. So, really, he's going to urge businesses not to cut wages, which is good. He's going to tell unions not to strike. He's going to try to get private charities to increase their efforts for the needy and the jobless. But yeah, this is the point in time where we need government intervention. We need big government, and we're still keeping government pretty small. So, in the summer of 1930, Hoover is going to really hesitate to ask Congress for legislative action on the economy because he doesn't want to go against this whole belief of rugged individualism and self-reliance. He wants Americans to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and just get it done. Rise up from the ashes pretty much. But this is a point in time where, people need help from the country, and they're not getting it. So, by the end of his term, he's a one-term dude because of this, he recognizes that he needs to have government do more direct relief to the people. But he's under the belief that state and local governments need to do that, not the national government. So, Hoover is going to have a terrible time during the Great Depression. yeah, 8 months in, he has to deal with the stock market collapse. He's only going to be in office for 4 years. And really, it's kind of like he does too little too late. So, oh my God, this political cartoon right here, the Democratic donkey is like so trolling Hoover in this one. Ah, yeah. Yeah, Hoover's a Republican. And, well, donkey Democrat. So, anyways, let's go ahead and see how Hoover completely responds to the Great Depression. Now, the Dawes Plan is loaning money to Europe so that they can pay back the loans that we gave them in World War I. Lord have mercy. Yeah, we think that's a good idea. So it's like, okay, it's like this. It's like your friend owes you money, right? They owe you money from way back. So you're going to give them more money to pay you back that money that they owed you. That's essentially what the Dawes Plan does. The dumbest crap ever. Okay. So, yeah, the terrible thing that happens, however, is the Hawley-Smoot Tariff. So here are the rates that we're talking about. It's going to range from 31% to 49% tax on imports. So if something costs like $50 or something costs like $100, all right? You're basically paying like nearly a $50 tax on it. And we're thinking countries are not going to retaliate against this? Seriously? Oh my God. I swear. Like, who is thinking this stuff up? Like, I just can't. I just can't. I know the purpose of it. It's to have a protective tariff to force Americans to buy American goods. But you need Europeans and everybody else to buy our goods too to make this work. So there's a fine line that you have to take. This is fine balance between charging too much on imports and charging too little. And certainly 49% goes on the too much side. So really, it's going to be reduced trade globally because of this dumb crap we're doing. So all nations around the world who are interdependent upon each other's economies suffer because of this dumb crap we're doing. And here's another thing. Okay, this plan was actually not too terrible. But here's what Hoover's proposing. All right? By 1931, I mean, conditions are so bad in Europe and the US that the Dawes Plan, the loan to pay back the loans, it can't continue. So what Hoover's proposing instead is actually a better idea. He's proposing a moratorium on paying back debts. So he's like, hey guys, how about we just not do payments right now? We'll suspend the payments. Great Britain and Germany are like, hell yeah. If we don't have to pay right now, that's great. We'll take it. We'll take the deal. But France is like, nah, screw you guys. We want money now, Germany. We need to rebuild our country. We are not taking the freaking deal. Here's the implication about this. All right. So a big reason why Hitler rose to power was because of the financial problems plaguing Germany, right? And he points at these financial problems as being like, oh, because of the Treaty of Versailles, and so on and so forth. And he's, basically playing on the emotions of the people in Germany who are greatly suffering because of all of this. So I wonder, this is just like me speculating about history, but I wonder if Hitler would have easily rose to power still if France would have accepted this debt moratorium, and then, we would have just like suspended payments for Germany. I guess we'll never know, but sometimes I wonder about history. Like, if we would have done like pivotal things like this, like, would that have prevented way worse stuff like World War II? So there you go, guys. There's your historical question you can ponder for today. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, damn, if we would have went the other direction, who knows what would have happened. So as a result, pretty much the international economy is going to suffer from the massive loan defaults that we got here. And banks are going to scramble to meet the demands of all the depositors withdrawing their money. So this is going to be a bad time. Now, okay, to give you guys a timeline of what's going on, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff happens in 1930. There's no legislation really passed to help end the Depression in 1931. 1932, we get a lot of people losing their jobs. I mean, 13 million workers losing their jobs. Banks are failing like crazy. Industrial stock prices are down by 80%. Overseas trade declines by 66%. And then finally, in 1932, which is Hoover's last year, legislation is going to be passed. So, yeah, the Glass-Steagall Act is not really his thing, I don't think. I think that's more of a Roosevelt thing when he comes in. But, yeah, Reconstruction Finance Corporation is definitely a Hoover thing. So, Hoover is going to try to help out farmers with the McNary-Hagen bill, where he's going to throw like 500 billion. Wait, 500 billion? 500 million to advance farm cooperatives so that they could stabilize their markets and such. And it doesn't work. It's just like a drop in the bucket pretty much, because by this point in time, farmers have lost a lot of money. So remember, net income goes from 7 billion to 2.5 in just the time between 1929 and 1932. So a lot of farmers really don't have any running water or electricity in their homes at this time. They're living in very isolated and terrible conditions out in rural America. So there's going to be a lot of foreclosures going on because, remember, farmers can't pay back those mortgages for that new farmland that they purchased to keep up with the demand from World War I, or pay back those loans for the new farm equipment. So banks are going to foreclose on farms, some 20,000 farm mortgages monthly, and thousands of small undercapitalized country banks are going to fail as a result because farmers are just not paying back those mortgages and those loans. So the Great Depression just worsens at this point in time. Farmers are losing their homesteads, and I mean, their world is just crashing around them. Crop prices are falling like crazy. You know, everything's in disrepair because they have no money to repair it. Lack of cash or credit to purchase anything new, and really farmers are just angry during the Great Depression. So, I mean, they are losing their homes. They're losing everything. So Hoover tries to help out farmers even more with the Federal Farm Board. So, yeah, this is a point in time where Hoover's like, okay, we need some government intervention. So the Federal Farm Board is going to try to offer assistance to indebted farmers and struggling businesses. And it's created in 1929 before the stock market crashed, but powers are going to be enlarged, during the Great Depression, and supposed to help farmers stabilize their prices by temporarily holding surplus grain and cotton in storage, things that can store, trying to stabilize the prices that way. But it's too small to handle what the farmers truly need for their overproduction of farm goods. The other thing that Hoover does is the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. So here's one of our comparisons to the Great Recession. This is kind of like the bailout bill under George W. Bush's presidency, where we throw money towards industry because they're too big to fail. And we didn't really demand a lot of restrictions on these industries. We just basically say, here, businesses, here's money. we're kind of rewarding you for doing your bad business practices that got us into this mess in the first place. So yeah, that was in 2008. Now, this Reconstruction Finance Corporation is federally funded, government-owned corporation. It's supposed to prop up the too big to fail businesses like railroads, banks, life insurance companies, and other financial institutions. So it's giving emergency loans out to these industries to help stabilize them. And they're hoping that the wealth will just trickle down to the smaller businesses and to the people. The Democrats are like, no, this is just helping out your rich friends. And it kind of was. But the Reconstruction Finance Corporation's kept on by Roosevelt in the next administration. So, yeah, there we go. One thing that is actually successful, though, is the public works projects that Hoover does, which is the Hoover Dam. Well, it's called the Boulder Dam, but it's renamed after Hoover. So that's going to employ thousands of people who need jobs. But I mean, by this point in time, it's just a drop in the bucket. Like, really, if he would have been doing this stuff like in 1929, like doing massive government work projects and such on the infrastructure, that may have helped. But by this point in time, it's like too little, too late. So you could see how unemployment is sharply rising at this point in time. And, so Hoover's going to create the Committee on Unemployment Relief, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation at this time. He's going to try to get charities to help out. And of course, he's still under the belief that the Great Depression is going to fix itself, but it's not. It's not. National income keeps steadily declining. People are suffering, living out in makeshift shacks and tents that they name Hoovervilles after President Hoover. I mean, using newspapers as blankets, calling them Hoover blankets. We got all of this people suffering in the country. We have something very similar in 2008 with tent cities established in some of the same areas where Hoovervilles once stood. There are pictures of stuff like this that you could look up, and I'll probably show some in class. Just remind me. But anyways, there's more unrest on the farms. I mean, farmers are going to form the Farm Holiday Association, which attempts to reverse the falling crop prices by stopping the entire crop of grain from being harvested in 1932. But their effort collapses. There's some violence that happens. I mean, yeah, farmers are just angry that their farms are getting foreclosed on, and they're finding little to no relief. But really, the terrible, terrible thing that happens that definitely tarnishes Hoover's reputation is what happens with the bonus march. So, these are World War I soldiers. They had been denied early bonus payments for their service in the war. They were promised bonus payments that would happen in 1941, but really they need the money now. So they organize a protest in Washington in 1932. Thousands, 20,000 are going to set up a makeshift Hooverville, a tent city, in front of the Capitol. And they're saying, hey, we're staying here until we get our money. So Hoover is going to send in the army. He's going to send in future badasses like Dwight D. Eisenhower and General Douglas MacArthur. These are our generals during World War II. He's going to send them out with the army to shoo away army veterans. What ends up happening is 2 of these veterans are killed. There's tear gas, there's tanks. I mean, the destruction of the Hoovervilles is seen because remember, by this point in time, guys, we already got motion pictures. We already got newsreels going on in the movie theaters. So people are watching the news as previews before the movie. And they're seeing all of this destruction. So a lot of Americans are going to be like, what, dude? Why did you do this? Why are you sending the army to chase away army veterans who are just asking for relief? I mean, a lot of them had their kids with them. So, yeah, what ends up happening is that the protesters are told to go away. They're not going to get their money. The army shows up to try to disperse those bonus marchers. And people are injured. This is what we're seeing on the front pages of newspapers and in the newsreels. This destruction happening at our nation's capital. So really, how Hoover handled the situation is definitely going to hurt him with the coming election in 1932. And because of the bad economic problems, and because now Hoover's image has been tarnished by how he handled the bonus march, FDR, Theodore Roosevelt's cousin, is going to win. FDR is pledging that a New Deal will come across for the American nation, and he's going to do stuff like repeal prohibition. He's going to give direct relief and aid to the unemployed and cut government spending at the same time, or at least that's what he promises. So he's going to win by a landslide because Hoover is immensely unpopular at this time. And the Democrats will also take a large majority in the House and the Senate because prior to this, the Republicans ran the show. So Hoover is going to be the lame duck president pretty much. The inauguration used to be in March, but the 20th Amendment is passed around this time to shorten the transition period to January for the inauguration. So, yeah, look at this landslide, guys. Dude, FDR wins. So, he is pretty much who we need, the new captain at the wheel to help manage us through this storm. And in his inauguration, you get the very famous quote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." So we will talk more about FDR's presidency with the next video, guys. But with this one, I wanted to cover Hoover and the causes of the Great Depression. So I hope you guys kept up with this because, bruh, there's way more going on with FDR. I'm telling you guys, the Great Depression is a beast, and it will probably be 3 videos just like the Gilded Age. So stay tuned, guys. You got more videos coming at you later. So I will see you guys later. Bye.